So there you have it. Today is the National Day of Botswana. They're marking their 50th anniversary of independence from the United Kingdom. And this happened on the 30th of September in 1966. 50 years ago, today, the Independent Republic of Botswana came into being. At midnight on the 29th of September in 1966, in the teeth of a vicious Kalahari sandstorm, the Union Jack, which had flown over the land for 81 years, was lowered to the sounds of God Save the Queen in a stadium that was filled with 5,000 people in the new capital, Gaborone. Now, at the date of its independence, the United Nations listed Botswana as one of the world's 10 poorest countries and the least developed in Africa. But now things have changed. The quality of education, the health services too, are up to the mark. Democracy too has seen a complete overhaul, and some critics would say that there's also room for improvement in Botswana. Opposition parties can act relatively freely, but have no access to public funds. Critics also complain that the Electoral Commission is too close to the government. And joining me in studio now is two of my guests from Botswana. That's Michelle Polokelo. She is a marketing professional, and Liseho Gasibonwe, who is an accountant. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
First things first, congratulations. Your country has turned 50 years. How are you guys feeling? Celebrations, obviously, in your country, but you guys are here in South Africa. Do you feel like you're missing out? I'll start with you, Michelle.
I wouldn't feel like I'm missing out because we've been celebrating from the beginning of the year, and especially this month, every day has been a celebration. So just being here, it's even a greater celebration for me with the African people.
Right, Liseho, how are you feeling? It's been 50 years. Obviously, you guys look like you're the new generation, but what do you remember of growing up in Botswana and the gains that the country has made, how you've benefited from it, and what kind of changes would you want to see if there's certain things that you're not happy with? Liseho.
Oh, I'm very happy with quite a few things, like education, for example. A lot of Botswana get so much sponsorship from the government if they've done well at school, which I see a lot of countries are struggling with it. Not a lot of things I would actually like to change, though, like the health is okay, hence we're very small, like our population is very small, so I feel like
you certainly look like you're very happy with your country. Also joining us on the phone line is political analyst Sifiso Mahlangu, who is currently in Botswana, and he's joining us from there. Sifiso, thank you so much for joining us. I assume there's parties going on in Botswana, and I suppose you're at one of those parties. What is the mood like in Botswana, and how has the celebrations been? What's been happening? Describe to us the atmosphere there.
Hello, Audrey. Good evening, Africa. And I'm seeing my people are there in studio tonight. So hello, Dima. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, Pula. That's what they say in Botswana. Pula. It is an amazing thing. 50 years of independence. Botswana's come such a long way. It's 50 years of, God's grace and 50 years of God's blessing in the country. And Africa is really celebrating. Many heads of state have come and arrived in a blissful fireworks ensemble last night. It's so interesting that, the youth and members of civil society and members of parliament have joined the chorus to celebrate with the country. Now, I've got a wonderful relationship with Botswana because I arrived there very young, and I was hosted and loved by the people. Went on to start the Elijah Institute in Botswana. And so it's a country that I love and have a wonderful relationship with. I'm always inspired about the issues of security. In Botswana, even though there are some attacks these days of late, but it was always known as a peaceful country. And, there are avenues you can just walk down and drive down without the fear of hijacks or the fear of attacks.
And that brings me to my next question, Sifiso. The narrative, and let me not call it a narrative, let me say, Botswana has been dubbed as African success story. I mean, is that the reality that we have, or is there a gap between the reputation and reality of what's happening on the ground? The stable democracy that has been written about and spoken about Botswana, is it still the same, or has the story changed within the 50 years?
I don't think the narrative has changed. Botswana are still very peaceful people. And, us analysts usually want to look at why, the people aren't vicious or why South Africans are a violent people. And we usually find that maybe because Botswana did not struggle with, things like apartheid, and that's why perhaps they're more relaxed to issues of governance. There's so much less protest. I mean, you struggle to find a protest like you do in South Africa. Botswana don't need to say fees must fall because education, even at tertiary level, is free. So fees don't need to fall. Fees have fallen. So those are some of the things that I think that nation really celebrates. The electorate system is good. That's one of the things that they celebrate. Also, you look at things like the death penalty, and I think that's what the law is benchmarked on. If you take a life in Botswana, you know that your life will be taken. And I think that's also the protection of human rights or the protection of life. And I think South Africa, even though Botswana is such a small country or a small population rather, and South Africa has a lot to learn, or all of SADC or all of Africa has a lot to learn from this small economy. We look at it as a small economy because it's only 2 million people, so they are not that big. But we've seen of late, Michelle, who's in the studio, works for a bank that has started in Botswana and now has grown to many parts of Africa. They've got banking licenses in various parts of Africa. So you can see that there's a lot of growth, but they still struggle with getting investment into the country. But it's young professionals like the ones we have on studio tonight that really grow the country and really grow the pula to what it is today. And the pula is stronger than the rand as we stand tonight.
And speaking of the guests that I have in studio, Michelle, I'll come to you. You're a marketing professional. How do you think that Botswana has managed to grow economically as much as it has, especially with the diamond industry, having helped the economy diversify? How has this helped, just the future of the country?
I think something that I really need to underscore that has contributed so largely to the economy of the country is one, as my colleague said earlier, that 85%, as we speak, 85% of Botswana are literate, and almost all of the 85% have been sent to schools for free. And I'm a clear example of that. I schooled in the United States in DePaul University, and it was 100% tuition funded by the Botswana government, even the stipend. Number two, the government has continued to support even out-of-school youth programs. The government has continued to support youth development and just different forms of development around the country. And as maybe Sifiso said earlier as well, that I work for a company that is homegrown. Letsego was formed in Botswana back in 1998, and through the support of other government initiatives, Letsego is now 18 years old, and now we are a Pan-African country. We are a Pan-African company operating in 10 different countries. And I think just from that, the government support of its people, the government support of youth development, the government support of economic diversification has seen the country through for the past 50 years.
Right, and Lesego, you're in the field of accountancy. How has that industry grown within the country?
Much that experience I haven't had back home because I'm currently doing it here. But I believe, there is quite a great market for accounting, like the small businesses that are actually coming out, and there are greater, just a lot of opportunities for, in general,
right, let's all just move to Botswana at this rate. I mean, it's just happy stories coming from Botswana. And well, obviously, it's not without blemishes, and
not at all.
Not at all. And with the same party having ruled since independence, Sifiso, holding on to the president's office and maintaining the majority in parliament, if this trend continues, do you think perhaps the country may risk losing the gains that it has made within the past 50 years?
I think there are a lot of. I mean, I'm a political analyst. I'll be the first to admit there are a lot of challenges politically. I mean, every country on the globe has that. But I think these challenges are dealt with, and even in South Africa they are dealt with. The number one challenge I think the country is facing now is the lack of rain, because there cannot be a clear food source and food security, because water is a scarcity in that country. So whilst water is a scarcity in Botswana, and there's a demand to even borrow water to have the north to south carriers, meaning from the top of the country, the north to the south, or having transplants from other countries, bringing it to Botswana. Those exercises are going to be very expensive if they're going to work. So you have some water challenges. Botswana is almost a desert. It's like a desert country, so it becomes very, very hot. And then you have water challenges. So there's challenges in agriculture. There's challenges in gender, because with a population that's also very, very learned, they also cannot all find employment, particularly those women in the villages. So there needs to be programs that introduce women to farming, that introduce women to bidding, to food creation, to design and infrastructure. So you struggle with building, you struggle with issues of land, issues of road infrastructure and road development,
Absolutely.
particularly because of issues of traffic.
Yes.
So those are
and
some
I
of
want to bring your attention to, obviously, the issue of drought is a serious issue, and not to water it down, excuse my pun here, it's, it's a very serious issue, but I want to bring your attention to the fact of, like we said, Botswana doesn't have, it has its own blemishes, and especially with regards to the 2014 elections, there has been reports that there has been intrusions into the media freedom. Is this something that has been happening on the ground? I mean, these are stories that we have been hearing, particularly during the period of elections and going forward.
And I wrote about this, and it's quite a concern, Audrey. South Africa is what we consider a media-friendly or a media-free country, which means people can say whatever they want about the president. They can draw pictures of him naked. They can do all that because it's considered a human right to do so. But where do we draw the line? I think somewhat Botswana is in the deficit, because there are some things that journalists may not say, or some things that they cannot say because of fear. And whereas here, you get the slurs and the insults and throwing of things in the highest chamber in the house, the destruction of property, the burning of schools. So I think the media has got a large foot to fill. You're dealing with a country that has a degree of media freedom, and a lot of journalists agree with that. But I think they would like to take it further. But because of laws that are in Botswana that perhaps we don't share with other parts of SADC, journalists feel contravened to not share some statements. They feel that they are not free, to say some things. I think as we look into freedom, we must also share, as members of the press, as members of the political arena, as people in the business periphery, that with all freedom comes a high level of responsibility. I think South Africa has exhibited so much freedom to some members of the press and members of the political core, that it's starting to disdain the country, even to foreign investment. If you look at what is happening in Parliament, if you look at what happened at the Tshwane Chamber the other day, I think Botswana's sort of reputation looks well, but the journalists are complaining. And maybe this is a good place to start, where a nuanced conversation can be had between members of the press, between big business, and between government.
Definitely, Sifiso. I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you off there. You know, the problem with live television is we're working with time. It appears we're running out of that. Thank you so much for your insight, and I hope you have a great time in Botswana as you continue to celebrate this Golden Jubilee. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Bless you. Thank you so much.
I'm coming back to studio, guys. What is your message to Botswana who are watching, either back at home in Botswana or here in South Africa going forward with regards to your celebrations and your independence? I'll start with you, Michelle.
I think one of the key points is what we need to appreciate where we've come from up to where we are. And now we need to look forward together to help our nation grow, to help our nation become better. Of course, there will continue to be challenges, especially that we are a developing country. We'll continue to experience a lot of challenges, but it's for us to
have a united effort to make sure you work together. Absolutely. Leseho, final remarks?
We've come such a long way to get where we are today. I feel like we should be very proud of the progress that we've made, and I still have belief that in the future we're just going to make more progress than the one that we've already made. And they should be proud of the 50 years that we've actually made of independence.
Absolutely. So where are we going to celebrate after the show? You guys can wait for me. I know you guys have been celebrating the whole day. That's my guest there, Michelle Polokelo, who's a marketing professional, and Leseho Hasibono, who's an accountant, who is just telling us how they have been celebrating Botswana as they celebrate 50 years of independence.